All right there, everyone. The one and only Matteo Salvini has refused to allow a Spanish migrant ship to dock on the shores of Italy, telling the captain he can go instead to the left-wing socialists in Spain. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. Sorry I'm not in the home office today. Our Wi-Fi is out. It's been out for a few days, so I'm here at my school, Delaware Valley Classical School, to post some videos for you. And, my, oh my, we just keep getting example after example of the courage and fidelity of Italy's Matteo Salvini. The latest episode involves a Spanish ship carrying over 100 migrants that entered Italian waters and demanded to disembark on Italy's shores. Salvini, as has been his custom now for the last several months since coming to power as Interior Minister and Deputy Prime Minister of Italy, Salvini basically said, take a hike. We've closed our borders. Now, by the way, if they want to get their boat confiscated and pay millions of euros, sure, come into Italy, right? But he said instead, why don't you take these migrants, take them back to socialist-run Spain, where you came from, the ship came from, and have the left-wing government there that loves open borders. Why don't you go there? They'll welcome these guys with open arms. Now, that's what the name of the ship is. It's called Open Arms. And they're so-called stranded in these waters here. And by the way, it's so interesting how all these NGO Soros-backed ships get stranded in Italian waters, right? In fact, a number of nations have offered to take the refugees in, including Spain. And curiously, the ship's captain, like all the other captains of all these other NGO ships, says, no, we can't risk it. We have to disembark in Italy. But Salvini says, no way. Okay, so he has offered to take 27 minors, process them, put them in the care of other nations and so on. But other than that, no way, you're not disembarking in Italy. So it'll most likely be Spain that will absorb these latest round of northern African migrants. Now, of course, Spaniards had an opportunity to have a government just like the one in Italy a few months back. They could have voted in the Vox party, comparable to the way Italy voted in the Lega party, the party of Matteo Salvini. But no, Spain wanted to stick with the leftist socialists, and as the biblical adage says, you reap what you sow. So Italy's migration rates have plummeted. They're down by over 90%, where Spain continues to welcome refugees in with open arms. Again, no pun intended there. Now, this occurrence is happening just a week or so after Salvini completely humiliated the liberal actor Richard Gere with the same situation. We did a video on this. So the actor Richard Gere, right, as well as Javier Bardem and Antonio Banderas, they've all been speaking out on behalf of these migrants, particularly those who are currently on this migrant rescue vessel that's been stranded again in the Mediterranean. Again, that's how the left-wing media always reports it, right? It should read that these vessels are deliberately stranded, okay? There are plenty of nations that are willing to take these migrants in. That includes nations in northern Africa as well. But these captains, many of whom are funded by George Soros, I'm sure, these captains are wanting to put pressure on the only nationalist populist government in Western Europe, Matteo Salvini. And so they're trying to pressure Salvini into giving up on his hardline border security stance, which would raise the ire of the Italian people and get him knocked out of office, right? Bandera complains about this Spanish ship, the conditions being a horror. Again, we have to remember it's a manufactured horror, a deliberate horror, right? And Richard Gere had the gall of comparing Salvini to Donald Trump. Well, how could he do that, right? And he said he just lamented how these leaders are more interested in dividing people than bringing them together. Salvini is like this horrible Donald Trump, putting all his energy into dividing people. So borders now divide people. That's what border security does. It divides people. Now, if these left-wing activists disguised as actors, right, thought they could intimidate Matteo Salvini, well, let's just say they couldn't be more wrong, okay? When asked to respond to the concerns of these lefty Hollywood elite, again, we did a video on this, it was too much fun. Salvini didn't miss a beat. He said to Richard Gere, I've got an idea for you, okay? Why don't you fuel up your cozy air-conditioned private jet, and put all these migrants on there and fly them all back to your mansion. How's that for an idea? Or are you more interested in just getting your photo op with these migrants to show how much you care, and then once that's over, get back on your private jet and return to your millionaire villa? You know, effectively dividing yourself from these concerns that we Italians have to deal with every single day. So in one sentence, Salvini turned Gere into a typical Hollywood hypocrite who's more interested in symbolism over actual substance, and getting his cute little picture on one of the migrant vessels to show how much he cares, but then when it's all over, he just flies on his private jet right back to his mansion, where, you know, the last I saw, maybe you have different information, but the last I saw, it didn't have a single refugee or migrant within miles of it. Isn't that interesting? The problem for this Spanish ship and these other left-wing activists is that Salvini's poll numbers only go up when he confronts situations like these. Salvini is seen as a defender of Italy and a defender of Europe from a northern African invasion. That's how he's depicted in the eyes of most Italians. This is why he has a 60% approval rating. And increasingly, most Europeans see him as this. Again, I saw this firsthand when I was in Verona, when Salvini arrived at the venue where we were having our conference and where he spoke. I mean, I'll tell you, his arrival was like he was a rock star showing up to the place. It was unbelievable. The crowds that just swarmed around this guy, and they were all chanting, "Grazie, Matteo, grazie, Matteo." I mean, it was absolutely pandemonium. It was unbelievable. He commands so much loyalty among the Italian population precisely because he's seen as himself being so loyal to them. He promised the Italian people strictly enforced border security, and that is what they are getting. They voted for it, and they got it. Salvini has effectively cut migration, illegal migration, down by over 90% since taking office. And Italians are rewarding him for that kind of fidelity. They're rewarding his fidelity by being faithful to him. And we saw it recently, you know, with the whole Sea-Watch showdown. A Dutch flag ship called Sea-Watch, carrying 42 refugees and migrants rescued off the coast of Libya. They demanded for 2 freaking weeks, the left-wing activist captain demanded that they be allowed to disembark in Italy. The ship entered Italian waters in open defiance against an explicit ban to enter. They had 2 weeks to disembark anywhere else they wanted to, but they stubbornly insisted on Italy as a deliberate act of provocation. And unfortunately for them, they picked the wrong guy to try to intimidate. When the ship rammed Italian military vessels, the captain was arrested, the ship was confiscated, the NGO running the whole operation was given the maximum fine, and all the refugees were dispersed to other countries. And what we found was that throughout that entire process, the polls for Matteo Salvini's party, the Italian League, Lega, went up during the entire ordeal, from 34% approval to 37%. Remember, in Italy, you only need 40% to have a governing majority in the Italian parliament. And according to analysts from this market research agency that did the poll, Lega could easily exceed 40% support in the next election. Salvini's polls only go up when you try to provoke him to let migrants into Italy. He only comes across as more faithful, more courageous, as more committed to the national security of Italy than any other European leader for their respective countries, and Italians are rewarding him for that. Now, the big thing to keep our eyes on is whether Italy is going to have snap elections in the next couple of months. The coalition between the nationalist populist Lega, Matteo Salvini's party, and the leftist populist Five Star has broken down. Prime Minister Conte has resigned. I don't know if you heard about that. I believe that was just announced today. He's gone. And now the question is whether Five Star is going to try to form a coalition with the left-wing Social Democrats, which would be a total and complete disaster and only guarantee Lega's massive triumph at the polls at their next election. Or they could try to form another coalition, but giving Salvini more power, perhaps making Salvini prime minister, given the popularity of Lega. Or they're just going to have snap elections, which will all but guarantee Salvini as the next prime minister. So we'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop over the next several weeks in Italy, but it's very, very exciting stuff. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Check out some of our awesome merch that celebrates all things nationalist, populist, and traditionalist that you're going to love. And please click on either our Patreon Subscribe Star or PayPal links below, and consider becoming a monthly or one-time supporter of this channel, and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. God bless.